This video ranks all of the marksmen from worst to best. Now you may not have all of the marksmen, but I still highly recommend you watch to the end of this video so you know which marksman to unlock and max out next. Alright guys, the first marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be Bonnie. Now Bonnie has been an underrated brawler for quite some time now, but overall she is just a weak marksman compared to the others. Something that could benefit Bonnie to make her stronger is to give her an extra bar of ammo, kind of like how Lily was reworked. This can make it easy for Bonnie to double her DPS and help her stand her ground when pressured hard. She doesn't have what it takes to fend off against aggro brawlers in her cannon form, so she needs some sort of buff slash rework. Now the only reason why Bonnie is somewhat useful in the current meta is because she's a great counter to other sharpshooters. She is a great counter to brawlers like Angelo, Bell, and Brock because of how bad they are at close range combat. If you can charge your super and jump onto just any brawlers in general with low health and trash unload speeds, you are gonna absolutely cook them. People forget about how much damage Bonnie can do when she's not in her cannon form. I mean, it's crazy. Now yes, one of the downsides of playing Bonnie is her slow movement speed when she's in her cannon form. So to kind of help with her movement speed, you need to be running the Sugar Rush gadget and use the gadget charge gear so you have an extra gadget to use throughout the match. This gadget is so important to help Bonnie move quicker to regain pressure, or just to help her in a pinch when needing to dodge a lot of incoming damage. Alright guys, the next marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be Janet. Now I know all of the Janet sims are going to attempt to flame me in the comments, but there's no doubt that Janet is weak in this meta. Janet has been receiving constant buffs ever since December of 2023 and never received a nerf since June of 2023, but this meta is just way too aggressive for Janet. She doesn't deal enough burst damage to take out the beefiest of brawlers, and that's why she struggles a lot. Now in my opinion, Janet just needs a complete rework to make her stronger again. I believe that Janet should get an increase to her main attack range so she can actually hang with other stronger marksmen within the game. I also think they should allow Janet to heal while in the air and increase the amount of super projectiles dropped from 7 to 10. This will make Janet's super a bit more useful because experienced players have no problem running around in a circle to dodge her super's bombs. Now kind of like how they reworked Chester, I believe Janet's second star power should be a part of her base kit. Think about it, if Janet's attacks would focus 30% faster even without the star power, that would be a huge help to her kit. This way they can come up with a new star power that will make Janet even stronger. A suggestion I seen that I liked was Janet does an X% of extra damage when her main attack is less than a certain amount focus. This will help Janet burst down aggro brawlers just in case they're within her main attack range. Alright guys, the next marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be Maisie. Now Maisie has received a buff to her main attack recently, so again I'm probably going to get flamed in the comments by the Maisie simps. Now even though Maisie can now deal 2800 damage at max level, that doesn't really fix a lot of the things that makes her weak. The nerf that hit Maisie the hardest a while back was that the devs nerfed her supercharge rate from 3 hits to 4 hits. This makes it that much harder for Maisie to chain and cycle up her supers. Now the thing that's interesting is they actually buffed Maisie's supercharge rate back in June. If you didn't know, Maisie can now charge her super with hitting 2 enemies with a super plus 1 main attack. Before, you needed to hit 2 enemies with your super and then hit 2 main attacks after that. This can definitely help Maisie out when using your super onto multiple enemies, but in a 1v1 situation, this doesn't affect anything. But there's no doubt, no matter if they buff or nerf Maisie, something that would definitely make her rough to play is the projectile speed of her main attacks. Since the projectiles start off slow and then travel faster over a longer distance, this can take some time to learn when first starting to play Maisie. No other brawler in the game has a mechanic like this, so this is something that is unique to Maisie so far, but this mechanic causes more harm than good. Alright guys, the next marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be Mandy. Now I know everybody is questioning how Mandy can be this low in the ranking, but it's because Mandy is currently bugged out. In the recent set of balance changes, Mandy's main attack projectile speed was increased by 20% and her super projectile was increased by 19% as well. This on paper makes Mandy super strong, but she's bugged where her attacks are actually slower now. If her buffs worked as intended, she would easily be one of, if not the best marksman in the entire game. Now don't get me wrong, Mandy is still going to be a decent marksman in the game because she can hang with the other sharpshooters in the meta. A trick you can learn with Mandy is that when Mandy is standing still, the moment her focus bar is charged, quickly fire a shot and immediately retreat. This can be more useful with her in my sight star power and is a good tactic when used in conjunction with either of her gadgets plus the damage gear. This is useful when you're at low health but still want to maintain control of the map. Now there's no doubt that Mandy is still going to be very lethal and scary because of her super. When playing against Mandy, just be sure to spread out and avoid choke points, as Mandy's superior range means she can easily snipe anybody approaching a choke point and can team wipe fairly easily if her super is charged. Additionally, try to avoid forming straight lines with your teammates, as Mandy can recharge her super in 2 super hits, allowing her to chain off just the both of you. Alright guys, the next marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be Brock. Now Brock Brock can be decent in lower ladder or ranked, but he's not a top pick amongst the pros. His projectile radius is absurd because it's super wide, making it easier to hit his shots. However, Brock still struggles because to balance out his main attack, they made his projectile slower, so it's easier for the enemies to dodge. For this reason alone, he isn't that strong of a brawler amongst the competitive scene. Pros are quick enough to move out of the way in time and just easily dodge his main attacks. Now if you think about it, Brock's super is kinda underwhelming as well. His super is not always that useful unless you are using it to break walls or rain hell onto a stationary target like the heist save. Players in general have enough time to get out of the way of Brock's super, and at the most we get hit by maybe only one rocket. Now in my opinion, to make Brock stronger, he could use a slight buff in his health to make up for his short main attack range. Brock doesn't have a whole ton of health, so he can get 2-tapped pretty easily by stronger sharpshooter brawlers, making him an alternative pick in rank to those brawlers. I think if Brock gets a little buff in his health, we might be seeing Brock a little bit more amongst the pro scene. Alright guys, the next marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be B. Now a reason why you need to be playing B is because she's such a good anti-tank brawler. Even though brawlers like Frank are nerfed, B is still going to be great to deal with other tanks that you might see throughout the game. She can also be a good alternative brawler to play against other long-range sharpshooters too. As long as you can consistently hit your supercharged shot, you can absolutely cook. Now speaking of B's supercharged shot, a tip I have for you guys is to use your super to slow down the enemy and then use your supercharged shot. If you have your super, you should wait to use it until you get your supercharged shot. This way you can slow down the enemy first and then increase your chances drastically to hit the enemy with the shot that really matters. Getting hit by the shot is a huge backbreaker and will easily force the enemy to retreat if they are still alive. Now you're not going to play a perfect B all the time, sometimes you will miss your supercharged shot, but this is where the insta below star power comes into play. With this star power, you'll be able to keep your supercharged shot and try again if you miss on the first try. This can really shock the enemies as they will think you wasted your 4K shot, but lo and behold, they're in for a huge surprise. B doesn't have a failsafe escape mechanic that can help her run away from aggro brawlers, so she needs this supercharged shot to protect herself. Alright guys, the next marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be Nani. Now Nani is definitely one of the higher skill cap marksmen in the game, but she can be really rewarding when played well. Nani can do a 1480 damage per orb at max level, and if you can hit all three, that's 4440 damage guaranteed. This can be tough to hit when you are playing against experienced players that can dodge Nani's attacks, but if you can hit even 2 of the orbs, that's pretty good. Just make sure you aren't auto-aiming because Nani's auto-aim is really bad. Now something that makes Nani a little bit stronger in this meta is her brand new hypercharged Big Peep. When activated, Peep grows in size the further he travels and deals increased amounts of damage if he hits an enemy. This can help Nani one-shot weak enemies or brawlers with a decent amount of health, which is always a bonus. This should also make it easier for you to hit your super, since the peep will be bigger for those of you that struggle with hitting your super. Now the only reason why Nani is actually ranked pretty high in this list, but also in the meta in general, is because she can counter other sharpshooter brawlers. The way you do this is by running her return to sender gadget. When activated, Nani will gain a special shield around her that lasts for 2 seconds. The next time she takes damage, she only receives 20% of that damage, while 80% of the damage is deflected back to the enemy in a noticeable projectile. Now if you can't properly apply Nani's return to sender gadget in adequate time, you can use it as a temporary 80% shield for 1 projectile. Alright guys, the next marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be Belle. Now Belle is one of the most played brawlers with a high win rate in rank, but it's all because of how consistent she's been. She has always been a reliable sharpshooter that has the ability to deal with long range brawlers, but also deal with grouped up enemies since her shots bounce off one another. She is fairly a simple brawler to understand, so once you master timing up Belle's attacks, you can really tap up the enemies for some huge damage. Now speaking of Belle's bounce shots, that is easily one of the most frustrating things when playing a good Belle. Belle can easily get some extra damage and charge her super whenever her bullets bounce between the enemies. This will force the enemies to stay separated from each other, and this way you can pick them off one by one. This is probably what makes Belle even more annoying to face, because this will not only help you do more damage, but help you charge up your super even quicker. Now something that Belle does have that helps her in her kit but doesn't make her broken is her hypercharge magnetic. When activated, Belle's super will curve towards the nearest enemy. Now this hypercharge is kinda underwhelming because it isn't flashy or doesn't do anything drastic that's different from her normal super, but it is helpful when needing to mark up the enemy or you just need the buffs from the hypercharge. In my opinion, and I think a lot of people in the community can agree, that Jean and Belle's hypercharge should be swapped with each other. Alright guys, the next marksman we're going to be talking about is going to be Piper. Now Piper is going to be considered to be a little bit better than the other marksmen because she has her super. You can use her super as an escape tool against aggro brawlers to try and land behind a wall or behind cover. If you can't even do that, just try to land where enemies aren't so that they can't burst you down when you land. You never know when an aggro brawler can surprise you out of nowhere from inside a bush, so always have one on standby ready to use. Now another versatile way you can use Piper Super is to break open the map and expose those enemies. It's amazing that you can use Piper Super to break walls to expose throwers, break bushes to expose assassins or tanks, or even break walls to expose other long-range sharpshooters from having cover. This will make it easier for your homemade recipe gadgets to connect, since the enemies won't be able to hide behind anything to try and escape from the Mickey Mouse gadget. Now speaking of Piper Super, to enhance that to the next level is by combining this with her hypercharged boppin'. When activated, Piper's next super will drop 6 bombs instead of 4 and will travel faster. When she lands, she also knocks back the enemies and destroys the environment. Now even if you don't get a lot of value out of the hypercharge itself, having the additional 25% damage buff to Piper's main attack shots makes her even stronger and can easily help her one-tap many of the brawlers within the game. Alright guys, the next sharpshooter we're going to be talking about is going to be Angelo. Now Angelo is still considered to be one of the strongest sharpshooters in the game. His ability to instantly deal 4,000 damage is enough to cause the enemies to immediately retreat, because dealing that much damage in one shot is no joke. Also, his ability to hover above water makes him extremely versatile on any map that has even the slightest bit of water. He can use that to escape danger from far range brawlers and also to cause pressure against enemies that are short ranged. What's also pretty disgusting about Angelo is using his super to do that additional poison damage. The longer that you're aiming down the sight when standing in your poison cloud, the more poison damage you can do over the next 3 seconds when connecting with your main attack. If you are also running the Empire Star Power, this is another reason why you need to be standing in that poison cloud. Having the Star Power will be able to help you heal up while aiming down your arrow to do more damage, and this will be helpful to keep your health up and stay alive a little bit longer. Well anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed that ranking video, I highly recommend you guys go check out this ranking video right here.